Alright, we are going to pick up right where we left off with the last video, which was about 5 minutes ago. Now the only thing you see different is the auger's folded back. We are going to get some green paint on that guy there. We're going to finish putting the drive together for the vertical auger, which drives the bin, and then we're going to get into, I think I'm going to put the tailings elevator on, then we'll go into putting the inserts into bin, which if you followed along in the last video, we've got inserts for the trough areas for the two augers that run in the bottom of the bin. We've got some thin spots there, so we're going to weld in some new iron. If you didn't follow along in the last few videos, what we ended up doing is we replaced the sump in the bottom of the bin, which is this part here. We put a new vertical auger in there. We rebuilt the stem. There's bearings in there to go up to that vertical auger, and then our horizontal auger was all brand new last year. We've got the old housing that's on the floor here. It got thin. It had fatigued here and there. It had some holes that were starting to wear in that. We would get about that much corn on the ground that you see on the floor here right now. We would get about that much on the ground every time we offloaded the bin. Jared and Christian are working on this Cat 3406B. This came out of the Freightliner that Jared had. He ended up washing this engine last night. He cut the frame. He cut that truck up. Cut the frame right in behind the engine. Left the engine mounted into it, and he's kind of using this for an engine stand. He would like to see one of you generous viewers send him an engine stand, because this engine's going to be a little harder to put in a truck tire to roll it over to put the bearings in and whatever else like that. So any of you generous viewers want to send us an engine stand, go right ahead. Now, this Freightliner that Jared had, what year was that? It was like an 80s?
84.
And he had it for sale, and this one individual came to look at it, and all he basically did was want to kick the tires forward and back. He wanted to know how many miles ahead the truck had on it. He wanted to know every little particular. Wouldn't make up his mind. Jared essentially had the truck priced for the engine. Somebody could just buy it and use the engine out of it. So the guy screwed around, kept dicking around. So Jared says, oh, I'm going to cut it up. The day before, the day after he cut it up, the guy called, wanted the truck. So this engine is the same engine that is in the Mac, which this engine probably ran better than the Mac engine, didn't it?
Probably.
But he wants to freshen it up, and he wants to have it all good to go, and then he'll pull the engine out of the Mac, put this in there, and then maybe rebuild that Mac engine and maybe sell it. But yeah, so that's the story behind that. So I need to get to work. We don't need to be we don't want to do too much talking here, because, you know, we do a lot of talking and everybody gets all upset and butthurt that we're not actually showing you stuff. But we're showing parts coming off this engine here. Well, you can see if he'll take that whole turbo and exhaust manifold off all as one. Look at that. Alrighty. I'll set that over on the bench. Christian's trying his hand at getting this compressor apart. He's on the phone at the same time talking to his girlfriend. Right? Are you sure that comes off that way?
Oh yeah. Does it actually? Yeah, that whole shaft runs right under there. You gotta take this plate off to get the shaft out. No, you're gonna end up inside the compressor. This is slipped over the shaft. You just can't get it out. You probably need a press. I don't know.
He's learning. He's learning.
Probably gonna need a press. That's over that shaft. You're gonna need a press or a puller. Yeah, but if you take this plate off here, it's almost close.
All right, let's get to it here. Careful now there, young man. What is that, the second one? That's the second one you pulled, or have you got more pulled than that one? Yeah. Just got that one in front of it. Pulled out. In no time, this head will be ready to be pulled. You're having a ball, ain't you, Christian? You like this stuff, don't you? It's good. Alright, so we just got done splashing a little bit of paint on this outer portion here. And then another thing that I did was I put primer on the inside of the bin where we're going to put those panels in that go underneath the augers. While we're kind of waiting for that to dry, we're going to go ahead and throw this tailings elevator back on the combine. We can kind of occupy ourselves with that while the paint and the primer is drying. So we'll go ahead and get this into place. We'll get it bolted down. We'll get it all hooked up. We've got a new bearing to put on the tailings auger. The tailings auger is what drives the tailings elevator, and then the tailings elevator drives a little flopper wheel in there, and then there's a small auger that goes across the front of the combine that dumps the tailings back down in to the combine. So that's what we'll work on for a little while here. And then we can put our liners in, which are in those boxes there. Get that tack welded down. Then we can put our augers in there. So let's see if we can't get this on there. Get this on there as easy as it came off. feel I need to bring you guys up to speed here a little bit. We've got this tailings elevator all completely reinstalled. It's all back on the machine. I went ahead and put a new chain on this lower end here, and I put a new chain up on the upper end, drive chain. The actual tailings elevator chain, I'm just going to run it. We did talk about replacing that back in the middle of harvest there, but we're just going to run it. What I do need to do is I need to replace these sprockets. Kaz has them in stock. It completely slipped my mind. I was not paying attention to what they looked like. Went to put them on there, and they're completely wore out. Yes, I have the chain back on, but I wanted to cut the chain, make sure it was going to fit, and there's where we're at. We'll just pull the chain off, bang, bang. Pull the sprockets off, slam them on there. Now this lower chain is right here on the bench, and I haven't replaced this in a long while, and that is really wore out. The upper chain, I've replaced that a couple times. Now what we're doing is we're going to put this arm assembly on there that is for the grain unload. This is on a little bit of a swing arm, and the reason why it's on there like that is so when you go to activate the combine to unload, the hydraulic cylinder pushes down on this arm, tighten those drive belts up to start the grain unloading process. Now this arm is on a pivot, and there's a couple of bushings. I've got new ones. These are new ones that go in this arm here. And we can pull you guys out over here. But this arm, this bushing, is wore out a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece of material for a washer. We're going to pull this off, and we're going to cut something and drill a hole in it that is the exact same outside diameter as this bushing. Now you might be saying, gee, Andy, quit being so cheap. Well, yeah, you're right. I could have just replaced this guy, but it was about $1,100. We have done some field repairs to it. Now there is a spring that pulls this guy back up out of the way for when you disengage your grain unload. It needs to pull this guy up out of the way so that it takes the tension off them belts so everything stops unloading. If you have a weak spring on this guy here, what will happen is it will just let them belts kind of just ever so gently run, and you'll have corn running out of the auger while you're going down across the field. Once you get a fair amount of grain in the bin and it makes the bin run harder, then the auger will slow down and stop. But we need to be able to pull that arm up out of the way to stop it. And there is an eye bolt assembly and a spring that hooks right to the corner of that bin right there. Where is that spring? That spring is right here. So this spring hooks to the eye bolt, and the spring hooks down in onto this arm. And yes, we've had some field repairs that we had to do. We pulled the spring right out through this piece. So we're going to go ahead and get a little more time out of this. So we're going to drill a hole in this piece of metal. We're going to use this channel iron because the channel iron is just the right thickness of what these washers are here. So we'll drill that, and then we'll cut the washer out. We'll grind this guy off, grind that washer off, peel that off in there, and then weld our piece down on there, and then we can get that into place here. So let's get to drilling. so we've got that drilled to the precise diameter of this bushing, and you can see that it fits in there very nicely. In this arm, it fits rather sloppy. We'll turn this guy up like so, and we'll show you that she's a little sloppy. And yes, we've had to do some field repair on this. We need to grind that down and yeah, get the washer on there and weld it into place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this washer here and we're going to trace the outside diameter of it, and then I'm just going to cut it with a plasma cutter. I don't have a 2-inch hole saw. Never really had a call for that. So we'll trace it and then we'll cut it. There we go. Alright, we've got the washer and the vise. We're just going to run around that with a grinder a little bit to touch that off. And then we're going to cut that washer off of that arm as well with the grinder. Alright, I took you guys along for about half of the ride here, getting this old washer off in there. But this was actually broken, so it was mucho cracked. This went together there, and all they had it was tack welded in 2 spots. And welded on that side and welded on this side, and then of course the years of fatiguing cracked it. So here's our new washer that we're going to weld on. We'll get that guy centered. We'll weld it into place. Then we've got a weld on the other side that we need to clean up and put a little reinforcement on, and then we can go ahead and bolt this guy right into place here. Alright guys, I think this is where we are going to sign off. I know I didn't get the liners in the bin, but we've got Tailings elevator. We've got our arm assembly for the grain unload on there. I've got that spring hooked up, and it's got that hydraulic cylinder compressed. So when that comes in to unload, that cylinder will push that arm down. It'll tighten up these belts, which when the engine is running, that pulley right there is running all of the time. And these belts are basically just floating in there. And then when this tightens up, it tightens down on the belts. And bang, turns your unload on. So that is going to do it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we will catch you at the next one.